Alright, hello YouTube. We're here in the garden again. Purpose of this video is I want to go over some of the ways that I fertilize to try and get my plants to grow. So as you can see, probably right there, see that little bit of white there, that little bit of white chips? That's 10-10-10. That's a fertilizer that you can buy commercially, and it's 10% nitrogen, 10% potassium, and 10% phosphorus. 10-10-10. So what I do is a week after the first planting, after I get all the plants in the ground, a week after that, I sprinkle that around everywhere. And then throughout the growing season, what I do is I'll alternate between that, the 10-10-10, and this here, which I don't know if you can see. But we'll get down there so maybe we can see. See this here? That's a leaf, but these are little rabbit turds, rabbit pellets. And what I do is I just spread them around. You can see, if you look at them, they just break up in your fingers. And all that really is digested grass. So they compost the grass for you. And what I'll do is I have these, you can see I spread the excess in between the rows. But I do a process called side dressing. Now I go next to the plant, each of the plants that would benefit from it, and I'll put a handful of it. And I just put the compost mulch back over it. And when it rains, and we're gonna have 1 to 2 inches of rain tomorrow night, it washes that in. So that'll give and everything, this whole row, everything in this row got it. Over here, where I've got my lettuce, and I'm gonna talk about the lettuce in a minute. Next to the lettuce, I put some in. And obviously through here. I think I didn't give it to the mint because mint just grows like crazy anyway. But I did it on the back side of the mound there for the squash. And like I said, we're getting 1 to 2 inches of rain tomorrow night. We had decent little thunderstorms blow through last night, so I didn't have to water anything this morning, which was nice. But that'll wash all of the fertilizer in. Now, today, what I also did today is what I call overseeding. Now, no matter what, you're going to seed rows, and they're going to come in spotty. You're going to have some parts like that are really good, and then it's going to fizzle out, and you're not going to have anything. And you can see there's a little bit of an area that's scuffed up here. So what I do is I look for where the seed plants are sprouting, and I go just a little bit after that, and I'll throw in more seed. So I threw in some there, I threw in some there, threw in some down there, with the hope that it'll pop and it'll come up. I did the same thing with the carrot row. Did a little bit more. I actually added over here, because I had some carrot seed left, I just did it in between the two teepees, the two squash and what are they? That's cucumber, that's zucchini and eggplant. So the cucumber, zucchini, and eggplant teepees, in between them, I put in some seed for some more carrots. And back here, in between the onions, now if I remember correctly, this here, because I use up packages of seeds there's a little bit left or whatever. That, I believe, is radishes in there. And in here is all, this is turnips, that's turnips, and that's turnips. Now, we don't really eat turnips, but they're incredibly easy to grow. So we're going to start. And here you can see we have the corn patch. And now there are 27, I believe there's 27 little shoots of corn coming up, little seedlings coming up. And what I did was I got all of those established. I got those started so that I know that they're going to actually grow, which you can see they are. They've all like doubled and tripled in size for the most part. And you can see they're not all spaced 9 inches apart. That's the best way to do it, is 9 inches apart. So what I usually do, this is how I start corn. This is mixed with half composted cow manure, probably a little bit more, probably 5/8 composted cow manure, and just regular garden soil, potting soil that you can buy at a store that we have locally called Job Lot. And the brand that I like, well, I'll show you. The brand that I like, it's like $4, $4.50 a bag, something like that, is this Just Natural, or Just Nature. Just Natural. That's the garden soil. And this is the composted cow manure. That's actually, if I remember correctly, that's 5.52. So instead of 10-10-10, it's 5.52. So 5% nitrogen, 5% 5% nitrogen, 5% potassium, and no, I'm sorry, 2% potassium and 5% phosphorus. So 5% nitrogen, 5% phosphorus, 2% potassium. That's what those are. And what I do is I'll mix those half and half, and I just put them in like a baking tray, whatever that is. You punch holes in the bottom. I'm not going to pick it up and show you, but you can see there's some of them coming through. Some of them look kind of nasty. I don't know that these are going to do too well. There's 25 corn kernels in there. I have a big bag of them, so if I need to, I'll just start the process over and restart them. But there's 25 in there and 27 over there, so all told, if those pop the way I want them to, and God willing they will, they'll go in here, and I'm going to use that same tray and that same mixture of dirt. Guy going by on a motorcycle. I'm going to use that same tray and that same mixture of dirt, and each of the corn plants, after this entire thing is planted, I'm going to start a bean plant, a bush bean plant. And the idea is that the corn is going to get established. It's going to grow a little bit. It's going to give see, I have the bean trellis over there. The corn is going to work as the bean trellis here. The corn is going to climb up, the beans are going to climb up the corn stalk. And in between, like in this area, for each set, I'm going to also, at the same time that I start the beans, get them. I'll go through that process in a minute, but what I'm going to do is when I start the beans, I'm going to plant in between each of these rows. So say one in between each set of corn. So one there, and just go on. I'm going to plant squash. And what it does is it'll take over the whole area. It'll go around the corn, and it'll go around the beans that are climbing up the corn, and it will keep all of the weeds down in the same fashion that the compost mulch does. Now, that is a method known as the Three Sisters method of planting. Native Americans did that for centuries before the white people came to America and took everything over. And they actually taught the European settlers how to do that. And the reason it's important is the beans have something it's called nitrogen fixing. And what it does is the air, see the air all around us? Yeah, you can see the air. The air that's in the atmosphere all around us it's something like 80% nitrogen, 79, 80% nitrogen. We don't breathe nitrogen, but plants do. Plants love nitrogen. But they can't use it when it's in the air, except for beans. What beans do is called nitrogen fixing. They take the nitrogen out of the air, and they fix it, literally fix it. They place it into the soil through their roots. So that's why in the fall, after all of this is not producing, big state truck going by. Big state truck going by. Probably doing hot top tar somewhere. Don't want to be doing that in 80 degrees. I don't envy them. But in the fall, I have ADD apparently. In the fall, what we're going to do is all of this, after it stops producing, after the fruiting plants can't do their thing anymore, we're going to plant a whole bunch of beans. And when they get about that high, see how high they are in the bean trellis? Throughout this entire thing, we're going to rototill it the way you saw, and maybe I can get Chris Grissom to come back again in the fall. I know he's going to be one of the 2 people watching this, so Chris, I will buy you beer and pizza, and we can have a nice little fun time. But what that will do is it'll allow the roots of the bean plants to take the nitrogen out of the air and fix it into the soil, and all of this compost that's on top of it will also be tilled into the ground, and that will really pump up the soil and make the soil that much better. So that's how that's working so far. That's how we fertilize it. That's the overall plan for the garden. There's still a few spots in there, here and there, that my wife and I are going to go get some plants for, and we'll put some stuff in there. You can see the potatoes are finally popping, all these seed potatoes that I was so worried about. You can see it just about there. See it? Maybe you can't. Go closer. See the green thing? Those are potatoes finally popping. Those are the seed potatoes that I ordered off of Amazon that I was so incredibly nervous about, because I can't do anything without getting nervous. I don't really know why. That's a topic for another video, maybe. I do know why, and that's the topic for another video. I'm not going to get into that now. But this is how everything's going so far. So we've talked about how the beans are going to do their thing in the Three Sisters method over there with the corn. And we talked about how the beans are going to do their thing in the fall when we grind everything back into the soil to let it rest for the winter. Now we're going to talk about one more thing over here. There's a bucket. See that bucket? See the brown stuff in that bucket? See the brown water and whatever that weird little beetle is? Maybe we can get him out of there. So this, here we go. Be free. He's free. He's over there somewhere. But this is rainwater, and I collect rainwater. You guys have seen the videos on that. And this is the reason why. What I do is I take a handful, a good handful. You can see all this coming up. There's a rock in there too, because I was trying to throw it in a different bucket and it hit in here. I take a handful of the rabbits' pellets, their droppings, their turds, and I dump them in this bucket. So the bucket's maybe 3 or 4 inches full from the bottom. And I fill the whole thing with rainwater, usually from that downspout there, because I keep a 5-gallon bucket there specifically for this. I got 2 big ones in the back that collect, that I can go to in times of not as much rain. But this, I mix the water in there with the rabbit poop, and that gives you what's called a manure tea. And the way you use that is you go around to each of the plants in the morning, because my thing now is I try to get up as early as I can, usually around 5-ish, sometimes a little bit earlier. And I get out here and I do all of the projects for the garden. Because if I don't, I'm going to get stuck in the heat. Although the next few days it's going to be in the 60s, so it doesn't really matter. And what you do is I do it every other time I water. I will sprinkle that. You push, well, I'll show you. Say this potato plant here was getting Manure Tea. What I'll do is I'll push the greens back like that, push that back, and I'll put the tea, I'll dump the tea right in there. And I usually do about a solo cup for every plant. So that red solo cup, I fill you up. Let's have a party. I fill it up, and then we have a party with the manure tea on the plants. And that kind of pumps them up. That gives them a good amount of nitrogen. That gives them a good amount of, I believe there's potassium in it. Oh, what's that little spot? There's a bug. And I give each of the plants that. It's really good for leafy plants like lettuce and the mint. Like plants that you're going to eat the leaves. It's really good for that. And it's also really good for fruiting plants. Now, one other thing that I did want to talk about while I'm here, while I'm doing this, is how I care for my tomatoes, and my peppers. Now, you'll look. Let me see if I can find a good example. Oh, here we go. See this here? That little, where my finger is, right there? That was a branch. That was an offshoot. Now, I cut those off, and that's what's known as that's known as pruning or sucker removal. These little things here. See this little thing? And I gotta grab it. So, what you do is that little leaf. You don't want that. That's called a sucker. All that's gonna do is take away from the plant's ability to grow. It's not going to it's going to take energy that would be going towards fruiting and growing bigger. It's growing out, and you don't want that. And quite honestly, I probably should remove this too. So I'm just going to do it now while I'm here. And if these look a little wilty, it's because it's about 80 degrees out right now. So this, actually, you can see this is another knife too. This is a Hawkbill knife. See how it comes up like that? These are the best to prune with because you just get it. Well, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Just get it behind there. And you just, if it's sharp enough, just cut it right off. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you, oh, you got to burn that because it's part of a tomato. And it could have early end blossom rot on it. Early end... wilt, or no, blight, that's what it's called, early end blight. And yeah, it could, but 80% of tomatoes have it. 90% of tomatoes have, all tomatoes have it. Everything has it because it's a spore in the soil. And what that does is it jumps up on the leaves if they're touching the ground, and it can get into the plant. So a good rule of thumb for your tomatoes, for your peppers, anything like that, come through and remove anything that's touching the ground, anything that's shooting off like that. That's known as pruning, and it's very good for the plant because it allows the plant to grow more. Now, a lot of people are going to look at that and go, oh, he just threw that in the center there. That's crazy. That can make things sick. It can, but at the same time, if they're going to get sick, it's already in the soil. So what I do is I'll just cut them off. I'll put them under there, and then I'll take a little handful of something, cover it up, and that'll break down. This is essentially one big compost pile with a garden growing in it. And that's exactly what I wanted. That's how I set this up. This is a cross between, this garden itself, this entire garden system is a cross between two things. It's a cross between the early 20th, mid-20th century, World War II time Victory Garden, which was meant to reduce the strain on supplies so that they could send all of the food to the soldiers in Europe and Japan and that kind of stuff when they were fighting World War II. It's based on that, and it's based on three different methods. One of them is really old. One of them comes from the Native Americans, which I talked about, the Three Sisters that I'm doing there. And one of the other methods that this is based on is obviously the Victory Garden. And finally, what this is based on is a compost garden. It's all of this that I've put in, and all of this litter and refuse and stuff that you see. This is so that it all breaks down and feeds all of the plants, in addition to keeping the weeds down. So this garden is a few different types, all kind of mashed into one, and we're going to see how it works. and I'm gonna keep doing updates on it, so you guys can see you guys can enjoy the process with me. But anyway, I've rambled long enough about this garden, so I hope wherever you are that you are comfortable and that God is with you. Thank you.